Good evening and welcome to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York. My name is Victoria Dangle and I'm the Executive Director of the General Society. And thank you all for coming. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. I would also like to thank Thomas Donahue, our window curator, who has installed a special window for tonight's talk. For those of you not familiar with the Society, and how many of you is it your first time here? Okay, and especially warm welcome. But for those of you less familiar, the General Society was founded in 1785 by the skilled craftsmen of New York City, artisans who represented 22 different trades, including carpenters, blacksmiths, saddlers, tailors, and silversmiths, among others. Today, our 234-year-old organization continues to serve the people of the City of New York through its educational and cultural programs, including our tuition-free Mechanics Institute, our Lock Museum, which you're invited to browse later, and the General Society Library, and our nearly 2-century-old lecture series, of which the Artisan series is a part. And you'll find additional information on your seats about the Society. Our Artisan lecture series started in 2011, and one of the first artists to speak was Bruno Lopez, who shared his expertise at that time, and we are so happy to have Bruno back, and some of our other artisans are also here this evening, so we're very excited about that from that original series, Sandrine Violette and her husband, Jean-Paul. And about Bruno. Bruno Lopez specializes in traditional period upholstery, upholstery conservation, and bespoke upholstered furniture. He was born in Paris into a family of Spanish masons, French milliners, and haute couture designers and fabricators. He grew up surrounded by fabrics, buttons, threads, and patterns. His attraction to the upholstery trade never ceased. After a traditional apprenticeship program and technical training, he eventually joined the staff at the Ritz Hotel in Place Vendôme. There he became the upholsterer in residence, which included the fabrication and maintenance of all the interiors. In 1982, he came to the United States of America, and several years later established Atelier de France, where he has been serving an elite trade for 3 decades. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Bruno Paulin Lopez, a friend of the Society. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. Great crowd. Thank you for coming tonight. And first, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. It is a real honor tonight, and a privilege to be back tonight for this encore presentation at the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. I'd like to express all my sincere thanks and gratitude to all of you for coming here this evening and for showing an interest in this murky and hidden subject that is traditional upholstery. I'd like to thank again Victoria Dangle for inviting me again to present this sequel of the lecture I gave in 2011. So welcome to all of you, and let's start this journey into the hidden world of traditional upholstery. The program tonight will consist of a depiction of antiques, and then we will have a little video, and I will segue into custom upholstered furniture. The relationship between antiques and custom bespoke furniture is the feeling, which is, as you can see on the table on your left, is horsehair. We will also have a show and tell, and we will pass these little baskets so you can feel and have a sense of what's in this furniture. Tonight I will cover and uncover, no pun intended, a variety of case studies. Some, because of their provenance, are directly rooted in the history of New York City. These pieces of furniture made in this New York of the 19th century, mostly by continental immigrants, showcase the affinity for good taste and refinement in the New World. These were fully restored to their original glamour. Their upholstery treatment, historically and accurately executed, demonstrate an affinity for high-end craftsmanship already in favor to a discriminating New York clientele. These upholstery techniques, like many applied arts, were imported from Western Europe, and once on these shores, evolved in parallel with furniture design. Whether in New York, London, or Paris, It is safe to say that the upholstery trade flourished in the 19th century. With the invention of the spring in 1828, furniture became more comfortable, more elaborate, and more sophisticated. With luxurious furnishings, window treatments, trimmings, accessories, plush velvets, lush tassels, and trims, mixed with the omnipresence of the Moorish influences, the 19th century was and remained l'âge d'or du tapissier, the golden age of the upholsterer. From its heyday glory, from the festive and exuberant period in interior decoration, I will segue to another time, another century, another millennia, and demonstrate to you the application of these forgotten upholstery techniques in today's bespoke furniture, where, in spite of our obsession with instant gratification and our inability to process time-consuming endeavors, craftsmanship and artisanry still has and will always have a place in our society. As a preamble and to set the tone to this lecture, I'd like to state some universal values that exemplify our work ethics. These ethical values could be summarized with the following quotes: honor the craft, and the customer will honor you, unquote. And, quote, do things well for the sake of doing them well, unquote. I'd like also to quote the Shaker philosophy of furniture making, quote, make every product better than it's ever been done before. Make the parts you cannot see as well as the parts you can see. Use only the best materials, even for the most everyday items. Give the same attention to the smallest detail as you do to the largest. Design every item you make to last forever. Fundamental to the code of craftsmanship is the desire to do something well for its own sake. Sure, the craftsman often gets paid for his work, but it is not the paycheck that determines how well he does the job. You can apply this craftsmanship ethics to more ethereal work. You can do it well for the sake of doing it well. The reward for doing an exhaustively thorough job can sometimes be monetary, but it may very well go unnoticed by one's customer. The most fulfilling reward of living by the craftsmanship ethics is the feeling of pride that comes with knowing you gave a certain job your darndest effort. It is the unmatched satisfaction of seeing one's inner integrity displayed in the wholeness and quality of one's external labor. The latter is merely a reflection of the inner self. So let me introduce myself. As Victoria mentioned, my name, I guess, is here, and I'm a French upholsterer. Everybody knows that by now. I train in Paris at the École Faidherbe, now called La Bonne Graine, and it's located in the 11th arrondissement in Paris. The school is nestled in the hub of all furniture trades artisans. This hub, nicknamed, quote, Faubourg Saint-Antoine, unquote, has been a beehive of creativity since the latter part of the 14th century. My training lasted 5 years and was split between hands-on the job training and technical schooling, after which I received a state diploma allowing me to enter the workforce or establish my own enterprise. In France to this day, without this state certification, no one can operate in any capacity. As a young journeyman, I did work in several high-end shops in Paris and the Ritz Hotel, and I came to the US 2.5 decades ago and opened Atelier France. Atelier France specializes in traditional upholstery treatment, conservation upholstery, non-intrusive upholstery treatments, custom-built upholstered furniture, wall upholstery, and upholstery product development and prototyping. My attraction to the trade came at an early age. I was raised in my mother's atelier. She was a milliner and a dress pattern maker for haute couture. Our friends were all tradesmen from different fields: finishers, cabinet makers, ebenists, and upholsterers and tailors. They had great pride in their achievements and work ethic. They were always discussing the degree to which craftsmen were able to maintain the old ways, able to carry on their heritage. Sometimes this heritage was received through academic learning, but for most artisans it was an oral heritage. It was always about who would carry out the traditional gestures, the essence of artistry and craftsmanship in their particular field. The finisher was always arguing about his hand-rubbed French polish with the cabinet maker who, looking for efficiency and profitability, was promoting the use of a spray gun. To a young boy, it seems that the argument lasted forever, or at least until the wine was all gone. This ethic of, quote, the savoir-faire and of the, quote, ouvrage bien fait, unquote, this ethical responsibility to their work that all of the adults exerted and displayed during these long evenings at the local cafe was omnipresent in the Paris of my childhood. It was established craftsmanship was a form of knowledge that carried with it responsibility. It was felt that the knowledge had to be earned and then applied with dignity. One would have to be worthy of the work and prove by his wits, dedication, and courage that he was up to the challenge, physically as well as intellectually. In the Paris of my childhood, being a tradesman, a craftsman, did not by any means put you in a lower social class. You were not considered to have the intellectual capacity of a primate. The artisan was a respectable individual. His trade parameters narrowly defined in that his responsibilities were to perpetuate the historical tradition of his own trade. In a nutshell, in my family, becoming an artisan was a big deal. My grandfather was a stonemason. My uncles and cousins were all in the fields of construction and building, and that is how, under this paradigm, I got involved with upholstery. So I'm here to describe my work to you, the work of traditional furniture upholstery. I will present to you a glimpse of the concealed techniques of this misunderstood world. I often call my work a, quote, ghost craft. No one knows, no one is being told, really, what's underneath all this beautiful fabric. Through this description of my work, I hope to help you see the unseen and to promote a philosophy, an idea, a work ethic, a concept that in today's world of mass production might appear alien, the love of the craft for the craft's sake. So what is traditional upholstery? Traditional upholstery is defined by the use of natural materials, whether vegetal-based or animal-based materials. It is an old world trade, and the earliest recorded upholsterer was Henri de L'Upholster in 1258. The traditional upholstery process has to do with wrapping or encasing fibers with jute hessian or burlap, shaping it to a specific stylistic form or pod, and then hand-stitching this form to compress the fiber as to give it strength, resistance, and longevity. I will explain to you that the responsibility of the upholsterer is in relationship to stylistic furniture design and context. I will demonstrate through a pictorial essay the complex work of creating and crafting stylistic forms, volumes, and shapes using the ancestral elements of the trade, such as horsehair, hog hair, cattle hair, Spanish moss, Algerian grass, koi fiber, coconut fiber, burlap, linens, muslins, tacks, and twines, springs, and webbings. To fully understand upholstery, one would have to develop an awareness as to its roots and development. Where does it come from? How old is it? How did it develop from a simple pad filled with straw to elaborate forms such as the ones created in the 19th century? Some art history is also very helpful as to recognize the different furniture styles. In order to fully grasp the intricacies of upholstery, one would have to be able to recognize a Louis XV chair from a Louis XVI, or a Applewhite chair from a Chippendale, or in the United States, a Duncombe Fife from a Charles-Honoré Lannuy, or a John Jelliff from a Belter, or lastly, a Potier and Stymos from a Herder Brothers. These differences between one period to another are also reflected in the shapes of the upholstery. The evolution of upholstery through the centuries is mostly prominent in Europe. It developed in parallel with the evolution of furniture as a whole and following the tastes of the day, whether dictated by the court, the socio-economic upheavals, or the influx of talents coming from all over Europe. I'm not crying, it's the sweat coming through. Tonight you will see how an object with historical significance get upholstered with an authentic period shape. We will also see how ancestral techniques are still used today to fabricate comfortable and long-lasting furniture. So, with no further ado, we will start tonight with a show and tell, and with this very first example, that is this chair that you see on your left, and that is covered with a gold silk velvet. This chair, made in Chicago in the latter part of the 19th century, was commissioned to me by Margot Johnson in 1994. As you can see in this blown-up photograph on the table, It was completely rebuilt traditionally with stitched horsehair pods on the seat as well as on the back. Now, after being used for a quarter of a century, this chair does not show aging. It remains in the same condition as the day it was delivered. The blown-up picture of the chair with the yellow silk velvet is a day prior to the delivery 25 years ago. So like a good wine, it aged well. And the stitched natural materials brought comfort with time. This chair will be recovered, so you are welcome after the lecture to sit on it and to appreciate what upholstery, traditional upholstery, feels like. Another example of stitched horsehair upholstery could be seen on these two Eastlake chairs, one on the left and one on the right. The fabric is from Fortuny. These chairs have been totally reconditioned, refurnished, recolored, and they are made essentially with horsehair. Unfortunately, you will not be able to sit on those because they will be delivered tomorrow. Right. The last example is a dining chair, the red chair that you see on the table. And it has been attributed to Duncan Fife. And it's part of a set of 12 from the Morris Jummel Mansion collection located in the Washington Heights neighborhood of northern Manhattan. Besides its obvious style differences from the previous chairs, this federal style chair is also upholstered with horsehair, like the others, and all the under upholstery materials are original to the period. The main difference from this chair to the others is that the horsehair is not stitched. It is just packed and hand-shaped the same way a potter would shape clay. Now, the difficulty of this process resolved on the fact that not only it's a very particular shape that follows the shape of the woodwork, the seat is convex and concave at the same time, and the difficulty is to make the upholstery shape exactly the same on those 12 chairs. I often use the analogy between the potter and the upholsterer. We work with raw material and loose material and end up creating, forming, and molding shapes. So to illustrate, I will pass these baskets, and they are full of sterilized horsehair. That will give you some sense and feel of the main material used in traditional upholstery. So please don't be afraid to squeeze, touch. You can keep a little bit for yourself too. And if you really feel it, you will notice that in order to make something with that kind of volume, you can visualize the amount of horsehair that one would require to create a shape like those. So now we'll start the show, the slideshow. Morris Jummel Mansion. The Morris Jummel Mansion, or Morris House, is a federal-style museum home in the northern Manhattan with mid-17th century roots. It was built in 1765 by Roger Morris, a British military officer, and served as a headquarters for both sides in the American Revolution. Located at 65 Jamal Terrace in Rogers Morris Park in the Washington Heights neighborhood of Manhattan, it is the oldest house in the borough. The home and grounds were purchased as a museum home in 1903 and declared a National Historic Landmark in 1961. The exterior was designated a New York City landmark in 1967, with the interior following in 1975. The Morris Jamal Mansion interiors are currently being restored, and we were commissioned for all the upholstery conservation as well as the historic reproduction, window treatments, and bag hangings. So here is the chair that someone in the audience recognized very well. And this is now with the new treatment and the new fabric. This sofa also was attributed to Duncan Fife, and it was its original condition, and we restored it and reconditioned the wood and the gilding. This was also a sofa, the Morris Jamal Mansion, also attributed to Duncan Fife. And we reupholstered with this silk. Thank you. This is the application of the trim. And this is before. The seat remains the same, and the cushion was deleted. I'm sorry, Nancy. So we decided to remove the cushion so the show wood at the bottom of the bag could be accentuated and could be revealed. A detail of the bolsters. And these are the window treatment that we are fabricating for the octagonal room. Detail of the fringe. And here's the octagonal room. Now we will move straight to Art Deco. And I apologize for this jump. I should have been more. And we have a set of Pierre Chao chairs. The chairs were fully restored, and the Macassar ebony on the arms was French polished, and as you can see, was totally protected. The upholstery is horsehair and is wrapped with linen Hessian. This is the muslin. The fabric that you see on the back is a 9-ounce linen. This is the horsehair being started at the bottom of the back. This is the full back with horsehair. The cotton batting. The back's in muslin. And the finished product. The trim was custom made, it was in-house custom made, and it was basically, the fabric was cut in a bias and was wrapped around a cardboard to give some texture and some volume to it. Here's the chair. Now we're going back, I'm sorry about that. The tufted Tiffany banquette. This was attributed to Tiffany, but it remains to be seen whether or not it's a real Tiffany banquette. This was the original springs, and those are the springs being latched down and in place. You can see there is a wire around the perimeter of those springs. And this wire is encased in burlap, and then everything is hand-sewn to the wire and to the springs. Then you start building an edging, or called a well, with horsehair all around the perimeter. And the twines that you see sticking out will be anchoring the fabric and the buttons. Here's the horsehair in process with the muslin. The muslin sewn with the twine sticking out, ready for the fabric. Another view. And this is the finished banquette. After that, we see an English settee. So the project was to render an existing settee and to make it into a banquette. This was the picture that we picked out in order to give us inspiration. This is the original piece. And the front post, the front scrolls, were moved forward, as you can see at the picture on the bottom. And then it was fully upholstered with horsehair again. And the cushion was in England they call it a squab cushion. The cushion is like a little mattress filled with hair. So the inside the linen, this is a 9-ounce linen, it's all filled with hair, and then you have a second stuffing of hair on top. As you can see, it's set up on the banquette right here. Then it's encased in muslin. And this is the silk fabric being laid on the front panel, and this is the same fabric being tacked down with the gimp and brass tacks. This is the finished piece, and you can see the little tuft. They're not buttons, they are little tuft, and they are there to retain also any motion that could happen with the filling inside, with the horsehair. Now we have a period federal sofa. That federal sofa was originally painted off-white and for decorative purposes. And it was owned by the late and fabulous Sister Parrish. This sofa, this sofa was stripped and recolored and French polished and restored to its original 1810 splendor. Now you can see it's all horsehair stuffed. Every single scrim and hessian is made out of linen. All the twines is flax. This is the same sofa in muslin. Now this is the sofa with this show cover. This is a horsehair fabric. Another shot of the horsehair fabric. And this is the final piece. Now this is a Tiffany sofa that was commissioned for the Havemeyer residence. This is a shot of the Havemeyer living room. And the sofa that I restored, you can see in the background with the big cushion. If I have a clicker, I would be, oh yeah, here we go. This is the sofa right here. This rare piece commissioned for the Henry Osborne Havemeyer Fifth Avenue residence was part of the main living room interior designed by Louis Comfort Tiffany in the 1890s. In 1879, Tiffany established the interior design firm Associated Artists, which considered everything in the well-to-do home, from fixtures to floors to woodwork and wallpaper, to be a design opportunity. One of Tiffany's most ambitious and impressive, quote, total environments, unquote, was the design of the interiors of the Havemeyer house in New York City. The residence of sugar magnate Henry Havemeyer, 1847-1907, and his wife, Louisine, was located at 1 East 66th Street. The Havemeyers counted many artists among their friends, including Marie Cassatt and Tiffany, and were inveterate collectors of contemporary fine and decorative art, particularly 19th century French painting and Tiffany glass. When the Havemeyers and their collections outgrew their original home in Manhattan, they built a larger home on the corner of 5th and East 66th Street. Beginning in 1888, Tiffany and one of his associated artist partners, Samuel Coleman, created a sumptuous Asian Near Eastern medieval-inspired design program throughout the house that greeted visitors from the moment they passed through the magnificent entryway doors. It was completed over 4 years. Destroyed in 1930, most of its art content was donated to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This elaborate settee was one of the few objects remaining from a suite in the Havemeyer collection. Upon a thorough inspection, it was decided it needed a complete rebuild. It was redone using authentic traditional upholstery methods with new elements that would withstand usage through time. The settee found a new home and will be used regularly, and it was paramount to rebuild it with top quality materials, most of them unavailable in regular upholstery suppliers in the US marketplace. So all of the under upholstery foundation is made with a herringbone linen webbing, which you can find sample on the table later on. This is a very strong webbing that will not sag and that will not rot. The coil springs are new as well, and they are imported. This is the spring work. The springs are compressed to a set height and then wrapped with a burlap, a linen burlap, and then the first stuffing of horsehair is lashed on. This is the first stuffing of hair that is going to be encased, wrapped, tacked down, and stitched. This is the process. And this is the seat of horsehair, compacted and hand-stitched. And then there is a second layer of horsehair, which is called the second stuffing. And then the application of muslin. And then this is the detail of the webbing underneath. You can see that the springs are sewn to the linen webbing. This is the dust cover. And this is the settee finished with its cushions. So you can see there is a lot of steps in order to get to that point. Now we're going to switch to the 7th Regiment Armory on Park Avenue. Built between 1877 and 1881, Park Avenue Armory has been hailed as containing the single most important collection of 19th century interiors to survive intact in one building by the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. The 55,000 square foot Wade Thompson drill hall with an 80-foot high barrel vaulted roof is one of the largest unobstructed spaces in New York City. The Armory's magnificent reception rooms were designed by leaders of the American aesthetic movement, among them Louis Comfort Tiffany, Stanford White, Candace Wheeler, and Herder Brothers. The Veterans Room, designed by Louis Comfort Tiffany, associated artist, undertook a complete restoration in 2016. We were commissioned to restore the original seating benches, which are part of the wainscoting, and provide historically accurate bench cushions based on the black and white photographs provided to us by the Conservancy Commission. So here's the restoration process used for the benches. You can see the bench. There is 4 of them. This is the bench I'm talking about, right here. This is the bench. He came to us. He was stripped and refinished, recolored, rewebbed. We decided to use this type of webbing because it's very thin, and we didn't want any thickness on the back since the padding was not really thick. And also, this particular webbing doesn't rot. This is the 9-ounce linen on the back of the bench. The webbing, then the 9-ounce linen. Now the seats opens up. So the difficulty about this piece was to make sure that when people will open and close the seat, the leather, the final cover, the leather will not be distorted or damaged or creased. So in order to do that, I decided to create a foundation right at the curve of the piece. You can see the horsehair laid down here, and this horsehair is wrapped with linen, and there is a stitch through to hold it. And then the first stuffing was starting to appear on both the seat and the back. Then it was wrapped and pinned down with linen and tacked down. And again, in order to emphasize the crease and to secure all the under upholstery, it was stitched through at the curve location. This is in muslin, and this is the leather. The muslin also was sewn through, and the leather was glued at this level and 10 inches above and 10 inches on the seat. So when you open this lid, there is absolutely no movement here. And this is in situ. And this is other pieces we restored for the Armory. This is the chairs in situ. Here as well. The officer's room. And the Tiffany room. Now I think I need help. different, so therefore the approach is different, the way of upholstering is different, and the variations are so tremendous that it's never boring. The changes I'd like to see in the future, I would like to see an awareness in the collective consciousness, basically an appreciation for this art that is upholstery. Nobody has any knowledge of what's going on underneath the fabric. You can do a chair in 10 hours, or you can do the same chair in 40 hours. But once you learn about the craft, just for the craft's sake, you will have an appreciation of it. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm glad you liked it. It was a collaboration between Parsons School of Design and LVMH, Louis Vuitton Moët et Chandon. Basically, we had a crew of 5 students, and half of the crew was audiovisual movie majors, and the other half was garment major. They were supposed to get inspired from the Artisan and make a garment and a video about the artisans. And there was about 15 different artisans throughout the New York area. And it was a purse of $35,000 for the student that win the competition. We didn't win anything. Simply because one of the young lady that was designing the dress, got into an argument with her father in Japan, and he forbid her to to basically do the garment without putting her name on the garment. So she was forbidden to go forward with the project, even though it was a team project. So she had to leave, and she cried for days on end. She couldn't. It was totally devastating. So that's all we had. We had a great show, and it was a wonderful experience. And and here's the result. And this is fabulous. So I'm going to segue to the new bespoke furniture, which are built with in the same manner as the antique that you just saw. Same technique, different frames, sometimes same feelings depending on the country. Some country doesn't accept animal hair, so you have to use synthetic hairs like polyester hair. So that's the way we start a project. Basically, we sit down and we hand draw a sofa or a chair, And upon approval, we start producing the frame. So this is one of the drawing of the frame to be built. And then we designed the upholstery part, which is, you can see all the feelings and basically the technique used to upholster that piece. In this particular sofa, you had coil spring on the back, horsehair, down cushion, another down cushion here, and you had full sprung seat with a spring edge here, and you had sprung seat cushions wrapped with down. Needless to say, it was very comfortable. I'm not just saying that, it was really comfortable. So here's the spring work. There is a lot of springs, and it's 8-way tie, very labor intensive. And you need a lot of hand cream after that. It hurts. This is the arm of the sofa detail. This is a sofa with a waterfall skirt, a waterfall skirt in the front, waterfall skirt in the front, and a waterfall outside arm. And this is the sofa in situ. This was a silk satin. And the type of fabric you do not want to sweat on, and you do not want to cry on it either. Here's a custom tufted bench designed, wait a minute. Yeah, designed by Harry Kilton. I hope he's in here. Great. Very talented man, and this is the finished product. This was basically a foot board for a bed, and this was the headboard. So whatever happened, upholstery was, in this back, you have a row of springs here in order to give you support in the lumbar. This is all, there's springs. Every time you see a seam, between each seam there is a spring. Well, we did the same thing here. You have a row of springs every time there is a channel here. So when you lean on it, it's really comfortable like a real sofa. The process. Here's a piece that the owner had sentimental value, and he didn't want to trash it, so we suggested to save it, to restore it, and to make a suite out of it. So we restored the frame. You can see the new seat foundation here. And we made a couple of wing chairs matching. This is the process of webbing. Webbing the seat, webbing the arms, horsehair in the arm. The horsehair, the scroll at the front of the arm in order to create that round shape that is hand-stitched. Details. Then the horsehair is filled throughout the arms. And then it's wrapped and stitched. This is the chair with these horsehair arms in muslin. The spring work. The wing. Now that you can see the process of building a wingback chair. So it's a wing with a horsehair and a scroll. Fox edge, it's called actually, and in muslin. And the cover was a mohair velvet, which was quite thick, and it was impossible to tame it, so to speak. in order to have it properly fitted, all those curves, particularly with the sewing and the stitching of the cording. So everything was hand done, with separate pieces. The face here is hand sewn to the muslin. The top of the arm is hand sewn to the front. And once everything is hand sewn, then the cording that you see here is itself hand sewn to that seam. So the net result is that you have an arm that really looks nice with no wrinkles and very well defined, very beautiful form. Because you're not fighting the horsehair by constricting through the process of pulling. You're basically laying down the fabric smoothly. This is the chair in muslin with a semi-attached down cushion on the back and a reversible cushion on the seat and a down bolster. This is the chair fully done. And this is the sofa, the same sofa you saw at the beginning. Now, this is a set of dining room chairs that was inspired by Jean-Michel Franck. And those chairs were going to England, so we had to upholster them with this kind of hair. It has nothing to do with the one that you just touched. This is polyester hair. It's wrapped, stitched, boxed, the same process. The outside back on these chairs were made with an applique, and all these squares were independently folded and sewn and hand sewn to the outside back here. And here's the chair with a self-tape trim. Now, a bespoke easy chair and ottoman that was designed by our friend Michael Simon. So you can see the arms, it's the same process. The arms are made out of hair, encased and hand-stitched. The second stuffing on top of the hair on the arms. This is second stuffing here. In muslin, you can see that the muslin, again, the muslin is stitched to the scroll. It's not pulled through in order to avoid any distortion on the horsehair stitch scroll. This is the back, made out of hair, and this is the finished chair. Now, one of the features of this chair is the non-reversible cushion. The cushion here, you can see, follows the shape of the arm. Tufted satin. Again, thank you, Michael. You recognize this one. This is the horsehair stuffed and stitched through. And this is the finished product. The Merlin sofa. This sofa was designed by Eric Hilton, and this is the foundation of the sofa. A very big and large sofa. You can see the arm, tufted arm and tufted back. This is the size of it, about 10 feet. And this is a non-tufted version. Now the Bespoke Furniture sofa. That was a pair of custom sofa, also made completely with horsehair and covered with a Fortuny fabric. Foundation, spring foundation here. The horsehair edging, stitched. The arm all stitched and filled with hair. The muslin on the arms. And the back, we used in this particular instance something called Marshal Units, and they are independently pocketed springs that is used in the bedding industry. It's very comfortable, and on some jobs it does save time to use them. And they are covered with horsehair and wrapped. This is the finished product with a waterfall skirt. Another shot. Cruise liner chair. We called it the cruise liner chair because it reminded us of those large transatlantic ships that used in the 1940s. You can see the process of stitching the hair. The hair is laid down, it's all stitched and wrapped with the muslin. The outside back is very particular, with a detail on the bottom of the back as well, different from the top of the back. This is the finished chair. A bespoke Art Deco chair. This is a model that we did quite a lot that was designed by Eric Hilton as well. And this is the chair that you saw in the video. So this is the innards. The spring work here is very particular. There is a separation between the front and the back of the spring work, which allow to last longer, since when you sit on the chair, you just sit on this part and the front doesn't move. So there is less wear and tear on the front edge. Then it's encased in burlap. And in between those two elements, you fill it with horsehair in order to provide a damper so there is no noise in the future. It's a finished chair, and this blue version. Roman sofa. Sofa designed by Eric Hilton, made in several pieces to facilitate the delivery. The arms and the backs are bolted independently to the seat. The webbing foundation and the spring work and the decking. In muslin with a cushion. This is a down pad on the back. All the surface here is down. And behind the down you have the horsehair. And this is in situ. This was designed by Eric Hilton as well, the interiors. Barrel-back chair, designed by Michael Simon. Here's the frame, raw. And you can see the horsehair being laid down on the back. Again, the horsehair is being wrapped and hand-sewn, hand-stitched. The muslin is put on. And the cotton velvet is then applied. Here's a shot. Here's a beauty shot. The car sofa, designed by Michael Simon as well. The spring work on the arm. Springs are encased in burlap and sewn, and then the horsehair is put throughout and stitched. A lot of time consuming, a lot of labor on the sofas. The down pads throughout, you have a down pad on the arms, down pad on each individual backs, and down and latex on the seats. And this is the final product. And this is the end. Oh wait, it's not the end. This is the new beginning. So this is what we're doing now. We are teaching traditional upholstery, and we're proposing classes to anyone that wants to sign up. We started this class in New York in August 20 this year, and there is 7 spots available. So let me introduce you to the crew. This is Garrett Rees. He has a school of traditional upholstery in Oxford, England. This is Armand Verdier. He's a Frenchman living in Great Britain, and he specialized in 18th century traditional upholstery. And this is Greg Kilpit-Jones. He just got received master by the City of Guild in London. And this is, of course, me. So we are starting this venture. It takes place in San Diego. It takes place in New York. And it takes place also in Great Britain. And I think that will be the conclusion. Thank you for showing up. Thank you. If you have any question, I think it's the time to ask any question that... Hi.
Hi, with some mid-century furniture, say by Giaponti or Encyclopedia, would they use these sort of techniques, or would they use foams?
Mostly rubber latex. Latex from the tree. Latex, it's the white foam with holes in it. Okay. They would use that. Or they would use polyfoam as well, but no hair.
Okay, and how about for like a Vladimir Kagan dining chair?
Foam as well, I would say.
Hi, I was given an enormous chair that looks a little bit like your Art Deco chair with a higher back.
Yep.
And it must have a wooden frame at the bottom because it has fat wooden legs. But the back of it, it's been torn apart by cats, I'm sorry to say. The back of it, it's a tubular metal, a very heavy metal chair, and it has horsehair originally up the back. And I wondered if you could tell me what era that could have been from.
Yes, definitely 19th century. It would be a Turkish chair probably, or iron back chair. Mm-hmm. The process of upholstery is very time consuming. You have to wrap the wire with burlap first, and everything is hand sewn to that. So it's very common in England, not as well here because it's too time consuming to fabricate. But yet iron back chair would be called.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Hi.
I don't think I'm sorry? It's gonna, I might be, is it too loud? Okay. In your personal experience, have you ever heard of an upholsterer actually swallowing a tack? Because I know that's a common thing upholsterers do. You keep the tack in your mouth and use the magnetic end of the hammer to pull it out and nail it. And
Yeah.
are you aware of any such case of that happening?
Yes.
Really? Oh, wow, okay.
And in France, we eat a lot of bread, baguette. It's true. Yeah.
Last question. Thank you. So I was wondering about this horsehair. Why
Yes.
is that preferable to, say, sheep's wool? And also, do they use the mane and the tail, or do they
The
shave
mane and the
winter?
tail.
Or,
The mane and the tail only, yes. Yeah, it would be the best ingredients for upholstery, yes.
but why would it be better than, say, sheep's wool?
Because it has a loft that the other fiber do not have.
Ah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
We just have a presentation to make. If you could just give us another minute, please, Karen. Go ahead. Oh, my goodness.
Bruno,
Yes.
that was just the most fabulous introduction. And to see the furniture transformed by your skill and expertise, just amazing. We are truly honored that you could speak this evening. You are a true artisan, and you've gone to so much tremendous trouble, and it's wonderful that we're able to see some actual examples of your work, and I do want to remind the audience to take a look at that. So really a heartfelt thanks from the General Society for being such a special artisan, and we are, as I said, we are honored to have you speak this evening, so thank you so much. Before reintroducing Victoria to make the presentation, I also want to remind you, in addition to the show and tell, which I hope you will have a look at, Bruno has also bought some really absolutely gorgeous postcards, and they are there for you to take. So I hope they are free, so I hope you will leave with some postcards. But now, to make a presentation, I'm pleased to reintroduce you to Victoria Dangle, our Executive Director.
Thank you. And Bruno, I echo Karen's comments, but I want to say you're a real friend to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, and it means so much to us that you've returned some 8 years later in the 9th series of the General Society Artisan Lecture Series, when our mutual friend Jean Wiart first assembled those first 5 artisans. And it was really, well, it was a celebration of our original founding of some 234 years ago with the 22 original artisans. But I'm going to just quickly jog my memory. But when Geoffrey Gournay, a metal engraver, we had the lovely Sandrine Violette, who told us all about straw marquetry. We had Charles Flickinger, who talked to us about glass. Walter Moberg, who talked about fireplaces. And then Bruno Lopez, who talked to us about upholstery. And it was really a turning point for the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen to have these master artisans come back, be in our space, talk about their craft with such passion, humility, devotion, and we've all learned so much from all of you and continue to learn. And Bruno, especially you being back here today and talking about something so magnificent, not only in terms of the work that you do for new clients, but the conservation work that you have done to protect wonderful creations of all of those that came before us. So you really honor your craft at the highest level, and thank you so much. So on behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, founded 1785, we express our gratitude to Bruno Paulin Lopez, Master Artisan Upholstery, for upholstery in New York City, for his participation in the General Society Artisan Lecture Series. So thank you, Bruno. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And at this point, for those of you who come to our lectures, you know there's no secret. We usually make you a lifetime member of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen's Library. But Bruno, tonight, just to be sure, you're a lifetime friend of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. Good? Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who came. Thank you.